Hey guys and gals, thanks for stopping by. Today, let's start with yesterday. Actually, my friend Radical Reggie put up a video that he titled The Greatest Games of All Time, and apparently he was challenged by a friend of his to make this list, and he really didn't want to make this list, but I reached out to Reggie and I said, hey man, do you mind if I make my own version of this video, because this is actually a topic that I have been wanting to address for a while. So, inspired by Radical Reggie, here is my list of my greatest games of all time. Now, I think he was challenged to do a list of 10, kind of like a top 10. I've changed things up here a little bit. I have 15 games that mean something to me on an emotional or nostalgic level, games that moved me and that stuck in my memory. I'm not going to put these games in any particular order. I really don't think I could do that. Too many of them would be in the top 2 or 3. I've just been able to put a list together of games that inspired me or that stuck with me for a very, very long time, and I think I can tell you that my number 1 game of all time really has not changed over the years, and that is Parasite Eve on the original PS1. I absolutely love this game. This was the first, I would say, deep story-based game that I played in my late teens. Absolutely adore this game, absolutely adore the combat style. Parasite Eve, if you don't know, is kind of like a Resident Evil game, like Resident Evil 1, if it was made by Square, which it was, and infused with all kinds of RPG elements and turn-based mechanics and things like that. It's really a unique game, even to this day, that you really don't see games like this made. There's very few games that take place in a modern setting in terms of JRPGs, which this is. Just very few games take place in a modern setting. There are a few, and I have enjoyed them, but the idea of a JRPG taking place in New York City with a science fiction sort of a plot rather than fantasy, it was very new at the time, and it still remains fresh to this day. I can't say enough about how much I love Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve 2, I did not love as much. I was kind of disappointed in that for a variety of reasons. I do like the story, I do like being in that world again, but nothing tops the first game. The next game for me, going back to the NES, is Mario 3, Super Mario 3. This game absolutely, to 11-year-old me, when this released in 1990, I guess it was, this was the game that really dragged me in. I did not have an NES at the time. I did not have an NES anytime as a kid, but all of my friends did. And of course I played Mario 1 in, 1986 or something, and that was great. I played all kinds of different games on the NES, and there are a handful of games that I do love on the NES, but not enough to put on this list, except for Mario 3. The game was deep in a way that I had really not experienced, with the introduction of things like an overworld map. And February 1990, I was just under 12 years old, and I remember playing this game for the first time at a friend's house, and we played the game for literally hours, the entire time that our parents were hanging out, well into the middle of the night. And our parents let us do whatever we wanted at the time because we were visiting, and so we could stay up as long as they did. And I remember playing this game for what feels like probably 5 or 6 hours at least, and it was the first game on the NES to really draw me into that point where it wasn't something that you picked up and played for 20 minutes, like, multiple levels of Ninja Turtles till you died or something. There was something about Mario 3 that kept you engaged and kept you going, and I really don't know what that is, other than the improvement in the graphics, the overworld map idea. It seemed like a deeper game than I was used to at the time, and to this day it reminds me of that time in my childhood. And then of course, moving forward to the Super Nintendo, Super Mario World blew my mind, standing on the shoulders of Mario 3. The depth of the graphics, the color palette, the creativity of the different level designs. The music was fantastic, and I just couldn't get over how engrossing and immersive Mario World was. It just absolutely blew my mind, and to this day I consider Mario 3 and Mario World to be pretty much equally 10 out of 10 masterpieces, and I couldn't tell you which one I like more. Refer to my handy dandy notes here. Yeah, I've always got a clipboard around somewhere. So yeah, Mario 3 and Mario World, absolute masterpieces at the time, and remain to this day games that I re-download on every platform. I just recently downloaded them both from the 3DS eShop with the news that that is about to close. I wanted to have those games accessible to me on the 3DS because I take my 3DS on the go quite frequently. So let's move into another system that really impacted me as a young man, as a child. Around the time of Mario 3, not too long after, in the summer of 1990, I purchased with my own money a TurboGrafx-16 and a handful of games, and that system really impacted me because I invested my own hard-earned money as a 12-year-old kid who had been, cleaning lawns and shoveling driveways and things like that for an entire summer to buy my own video game system. And two games that absolutely stuck with me to this day are Keith Courage in Alpha Zones. Now, that was the pack-in title that came with the TurboGrafx-16, and a lot of people say that is one of the major reasons why the system failed. Had it launched packed in with Bonk's Adventure or Bonk's Revenge as the kind of mascot character to stand up to Mario, I think the system probably would have done a lot better packed in with Bonk's Adventure, which was a fantastic game, but it doesn't quite make this list for me, although it's damn close. For me, Keith Courage and Alpha Zones being the game that I played over and over and over again on that system, I absolutely love the game. I love the vibe. I had never been exposed to anime at that point in time, and I didn't really know what I was getting into, but the whole idea of being this little kid in this kind of medieval world with a little sword and little cutesy enemies, and then you get to the end of the level and you warp into this mega mech suit with this huge flaming sword sort of idea, and go into these kind of dark underworlds and have these really crazy battles with crazy enemies and stuff. This was a level of art and a level of mood that I had not been experienced to. It was a vibe that I had no idea. It was completely fresh to me in 1990, and to this day I remember fondly the music and the first couple of levels that I played over and over again because I wasn't good enough to carry on at the time. Today, going back to that game, it just brings back such a swell of nostalgia, and another game on the system that I feel the same way, and it was the first shoot-'em-up that I had ever played, and that was Sidearms. And to this day, I compare every shoot-'em-up that I play to Sidearms, and are there better ones objectively? Something like an Ikaruga, for example. Yeah, there are better shoot-'em-ups. The cave shoot-'em-ups are fantastic, but for my money, at the time, playing Sidearms on my TurboGrafx-16, and then realizing there was a arcade version of this game that I could play at my local rec center, when we went swimming and playing hockey and that sort of thing. In the lobby of the rec center, there was an arcade cabinet with this game, and realizing that I could do the same thing on an arcade cabinet that I could at home, and they were very similar. That was kind of a seminal moment for me, realizing that, wow, home gaming has come to the place where you can really have a comparable experience to the arcade, and I absolutely love that game. I think it is one of the most underrated shoot-'em-ups of all time, and I absolutely advise anyone, even if you have to pirate this game or emulate it, check it out because it is very creative. The way that you go through different levels and different perspectives, you're kind of going left to right, and then in the next level you're working your way down, kind of a cave sort of a scenario, and there's a lot of different and varied enemies. A very well designed game. Moving on to a much newer console and a game that I didn't think I was going to like as much as I did, and that is Diablo 3. Now, I have memories back in the 90s of playing Diablo 1 on PC and thinking it was pretty cool, but not god tier. I played Diablo 3 not too long ago, within the last couple of years, and I absolutely got hooked. I was playing it on the Nintendo Switch, the Eternal Edition or whatever, and you know, it took me 2 or 3 hours of gameplay of kind of failing to realize the whole loop of how it works with a looter style game where you have to go out, do your battles, get your loot, and then come back to your kind of home world, equip the best loot that you possibly can and put the rest in storage to sell later or whatever, and go back out there and, being a little bit stronger and a little bit stronger and take on stronger and stronger enemies. And I absolutely love that gameplay loop. I love Diablo 3 so much, and that game has inspired me to go out and find all kinds of games in that vein, and none of them have really quite compared. I have enjoyed Darksiders Genesis, which is kind of a top-down Diablo-style game, but it's not as good as Diablo 3. I checked out Titan Quest on the Switch, and it's a little clunky. I like the idea of the kind of, Greek mythology sort of idea, but yeah, I don't know. It's led me to other styles of games, something like Hades, for example, which has similar combat, but it's more of a roguelike style game, and I love Hades. I love what Hades is doing, and it all comes back to my love of Diablo 3. So, another, theoretically PS3 game that I absolutely love, and the PS3 was a very important system to me in terms of my love of gaming and coming back to gaming after an extended break. And some of the experiences I had on the PS3 stick with me as some of my favorite games of all time, and Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch is no exception. I absolutely love this game. As a fan of Studio Ghibli, as a fan now of anime, some of the stories and the beautiful art, this game just pulls me in right from the get-go. The art, the style, the way it's written with such heart, just absolutely, it tugs at my soul in a way that no other game ever has. And the way the combat works with your familiars and stuff like that, some people compare it to a Pokemon game. It's really not that much of a comparison, but you do collect little monsters and level them up and stuff like that. So I guess from that aspect, it is similar in a way to Pokemon, and it's weird, if it really is that similar, that I don't really enjoy Pokemon all that much, although Arceus has been pretty cool so far. Your traditional Pokemon games have not been something that I like, but Ni no Kuni, the story, the music, I can't get the music out of my head. I hum it while I'm driving down the road. It's just such a fantastic game. If you haven't played it, you owe it to yourself to give this game a chance. It's on the PS3, it's on the PS4. You can download it digitally for probably less than 20 bucks when it's on sale on the PS4 or on the PS5, the remastered version. Now, the other Ni no Kuni game, Ni no Kuni 2, it didn't hit with me as much. It's still nice, but the art is not as nice because it doesn't really have Studio Ghibli's influence, and the combat is more of an action combat, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it just doesn't hit with me the same way. I've never beat that game, but I probably will someday just to check it off the list. But Ni no Kuni 1, Wrath of the White Witch, such a masterpiece. 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10 game. I can't say enough good things about it. Another game by the same developer, Level 5, which is probably my favorite developer currently in existence, and that is Fantasy Life. Now, a lot of people would say this game is very simplistic and probably aimed at a younger audience, and you'd be right. But I love this game. I love the cute, chibi art style. I love the funny, humorous writing style, even though it's kind of campy and cheesy at some times. I just love it. I love the action combat in this game. It suits the game. Again, it's kind of sort of a Diablo style top-down combat, very simple combat where you have 2 or 3 different action buttons. You've got depending on how you outfit your character, you have 12 or 13 different classes you can choose from. Only a couple of major combat classes. Some of the other classes, it's broken down into all these different lives that you can pursue in the game. You can be a hunter or a fisherman, you can be a magic user or a paladin, or like an archer. There's so many different woodcutter, so many different lives that you can pursue in this game. But generally when I play it, and I've played it quite a bit now, I usually choose an actual combat class, whether it be paladin or wizard or whatever. My current playthrough right now, I'm a wizard, and I'm enjoying learning a different combat style for absolutely sure. But the game is huge. It's huge. I actually just purchased the DLC again because the 3DS shop will be closing down pretty shortly. I wanted to get my hands on the DLC for one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm working my way through that game now so that I can access the DLC and check it out. Final Fantasy XIII is a game you might not expect me to put on this list. Final Fantasy XIII really blew my mind when it first came out, and the reason why is I had just stepped into the future at that time. I had just purchased an Xbox 360, and I had just purchased a Samsung 50-inch TV, which was the biggest, nicest, highest resolution TV that I had ever owned at that point. And when we purchased Final Fantasy XIII and started playing it, I remember watching Kaz play it as a young man. I think he was maybe 14 or 15 or something, if I remember correctly. And watching him play this game and playing it a little bit myself, the graphics blew my mind. I had never seen anything so beautiful, just eye-wateringly beautiful, coming out of a video game console. Sure, there are criticisms of the game, that it's a hallway simulator or whatever, but I kind of like linear games to begin with. I like games that tell me exactly what I'm supposed to do and where I'm supposed to go. It's one of the biggest frustrations I have with especially open world games. It's like, great, you can do whatever you want, but if you don't tell me what I'm supposed to do, I'm just going to end up beating on trees or something. Like, tell me what I need to do. Breath of the Wild was the first really open world game that I was able to appreciate because there was enough of the quests and objectives and things like that that would keep leading you in the right direction, and I absolutely love Breath of the Wild. It is one of the best games that I have ever played, and that is the next game on this list. And I gotta say, Breath of the Wild, it changed my perception of video games. I played it on the Wii U with my cousin Mike, and most of my major gaming memories come from couch co-op with cousin Mike. Now, of course, we can't do co-op in Breath of the Wild, but we would just pass the controller back and forth, and one of us would sit there with, a game guide or something, giving hints to the other guy, and, just go back and forth. And man, that game, it represents several months of gaming that we did together a couple nights a week, and I can't overstate how important Breath of the Wild was to me. And this is from a guy who's not really a huge Zelda fan. I mean, I love and respect Zelda, but I've only played a few games outside the original on the NES, which I'm pretty sure I never beat as a kid. It was pretty hard. But yeah, so we've gone through, Fantasy Life, Final Fantasy XIII, Breath of the Wild, I can't overstate how important these games have been to me over the years. And then we move into something else that's been pretty important to me over the years, and that is farming games. I spent a significant portion of my adult life in my late 20s and early 30s playing Farmville and Farmville clones on Facebook, and I absolutely love farming games. I absolutely love that relaxing kind of busy work mentality where you're just chopping down trees and harvesting crops and things like that. And I had been looking and looking and looking for a game on a console which would give me that same sort of drive Farmville did, that addictive mentality of keeping you going and going and going. And I never really found it. I mean, I worked my way through various Harvest Moon games, Stardew Valley, and other games of that nature until I came across Story of Seasons: Pioneers of Olive Town, which released last year, late 2020 or early 2021, I can't remember. This game is a masterpiece in so many ways. There were some problems with it graphically, and they've updated some things, and they've made it better over the time since it launched. But I can't say enough. This is the best console-based farming game I have ever played. It moves so much faster, it keeps you busy, it keeps you engaged, there's always something to do. With most console farming games, they are very slow-paced, and it's like, the crops take 5 or 6 or 7 in-game days to grow, and you basically just water your crops every day, and then you have nothing to do for that whole kind of 20 or 30 minute period that represents a day in game. You have nothing to do, and you walk into town and you talk to a couple of villagers, and maybe you buy some seeds or something, and then you come back and maybe you put a few things in your for sale bin, but you're basically just standing around a lot of the time waiting for the clock to run out. And of course you can go to bed earlier if you want to and move to the next day, but Story of Seasons: Pioneers of Olive Town gives you so much stuff to do. For example, your farm, when you get it, is absolutely overgrown with trees and bushes and grasses and all kinds of different vegetables growing wild and things that you can pick up and harvest and sell, and you've got buildings to repair, and there's just so much stuff going on that you can just keep going through the whole day and get to the end of the day. And sometimes as you get further into the game, you actually can't complete everything you would like to complete within a day's cycle. There are mines to go mining and so many different things to keep you busy, like fishing and tournaments and things like that in the town, and upgrading your tools. And so I absolutely love this game. And if you've ever been hesitant about farming games, and you've maybe tried Stardew Valley and thought it's nice, but it seems kind of slow paced and boring and it's not for you, try Pioneers of Olive Town. It moves a lot quicker. What else have we got here? Talking about simulation style games, a game that came out of nowhere for me in the early pandemic and basically saved me was Animal Crossing New Horizons. Animal Crossing New Horizons, I had never really played an Animal Crossing game. I mean, I played maybe 2 hours of New Leaf on the 3DS and thought it was fine, whatever. But I bought Animal Crossing New Horizons digitally at launch on my, at the time, brand new Switch, because I had just purchased my first Switch a few months before Animal Crossing, not even a few months, like a few weeks before Animal Crossing came out. And this was the first kind of big game that I invested in, big full price game, and I played it and played it and played it. I played it every day, a couple times a day for an hour or so. And the game just sucked me in. It was so sweet and so charming, but at the same time, again, there was plenty of things to do to keep you engaged. You could go to another island, and you could go swim. Well, you couldn't go swimming at that time, but there were so many things that you could do besides just shake trees. And the idea of being able to build out your house and upgrade it, and Tom Nook would give you a mortgage so you didn't have to wait until you had to pay, a certain amount of money to proceed. And the whole game was just designed to keep you engaged, and I absolutely love that game because it gave me the peace and relaxation and tranquility that I needed during the pandemic, because the pandemic was very stressful at the beginning, and the game saved me in so many ways. Getting towards the end of the list here, Twisted Metal 3. Now, a lot of people would say Twisted Metal 3 was one of the worst games in the series, or certainly not amongst the best games in the series. A lot of people point to Twisted Metal Black on the PS2, which was fantastic as well, and Twisted Metal 1, obviously you can't beat the original in a lot of ways, but Twisted Metal 3, for me, was the first game I played in the series, again, on the couch with Cousin Mike. Co-op play, versus play, the story mode. The game was absolutely fantastic, and it's one of those games that you can come back to over and over and over again. It has so much replay value. Being able to just pop it in and play a level or two until you die against the AI or whatever, a very arcadey sort of experience, but deeper than most arcade games, and fantastic. To this day, that I can go back and play this game on something like my PS1 Classic with Cousin Mike and absolutely enjoy every minute of this game. Such a well-designed series that kind of lost its way in later years. It lost that arcadey feel and became, with something like Twisted Metal Black, it became a much bigger, longer, more involved experience. And I think that's kind of, although I love Twisted Metal Black, I feel like that's where it began to lose its way. The original trilogy 1, 2, and 3 on the PS1, had some ups and downs, but any one of those games are masterpieces in my opinion. I started obviously with the third one, and that's the one I have the greatest memories with, but all three of them are fantastic. Another car game, and this is a series that absolutely still sticks with me to this day, and that is the Gran Turismo series. And I've been playing Gran Turismo Sport on my PS5 right now just to kind of refresh my memory about the controls and get a little bit of practice in. But Gran Turismo 6 is currently the best racing game of all time, in my opinion. That may change with 7, but looking back through the history of Gran Turismo, 2, 4, and 6 were all masterpieces in my opinion, but 6 takes the cake. So much depth, so much to explore, so many different things to do, and so much to learn. Gran Turismo has been so dedicated to the history of loving cars, the history of cars themselves, the history of racing, and so much depth in terms of very accurate, detailed upgrading, different tires and wheels, different motor parts, different brakes, so many things that you can do, and all of those changes make little changes to the very real gameplay. It reflects what you do in that car, doesn't just make it faster like upgrading in an arcade game. It can change things incredibly. In some cases, the upgrades that you can do, if you mix the wrong upgrades, it can actually make your car slower. But yeah, just a very, very detailed series, and Gran Turismo 6 had everything in spades. And to this day, again, the PS3 being so important to me, Gran Turismo 6 is just an absolute masterpiece, and I am just absolutely dying for Gran Turismo 7 to give me that experience over again. Gran Turismo Sport, when it launched, was a pretty stripped down game. It felt like almost like a tech demo for the PS4, and I was very disappointed that they didn't give us a proper numbered Gran Turismo game on the PS4 generation. But now we're getting one on the PS5, and I guess it's also going to be backwards compatible, or however you call that, cross-generation. So it will be on the PS4 as well. So I guess we finally did get our numbered Gran Turismo on the PS4, but couple last games here, and again, this comes from the PS3 and 360 generation, and that is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Now, why would I mention a Call of Duty game? You say, it's about the experience, and that's the theme of this entire video. The experience that I had at the time, in the moment, with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and 3 were actually masterpieces, but 3 was fantastic because it allowed me and a friend on the couch to work cooperatively through all the different missions that they had in Modern Warfare 3, which was fantastic. It wasn't just a story mode, it was something where you could build your characters and level up and get access to more equipment and go through all of these different missions, and if you got enough stars on each mission, you could unlock the next set of missions. We were able to do so many things together that we would do over and over and over again. He would, Cousin Mike would come over a couple times a week, and we would play this game for an hour or so, just do 2 or 3 missions. They last 10 or 15 minutes a piece, and then maybe go do some free-for-alls or something in something like Black Ops 2, excuse me, but Modern Warfare 3 for me is the game that I remember most fondly as, all of these different missions, learning to master these missions. We would do them over and over and over again and try to get that top star rating. And we would switch positions. I remember some of the ones like the bomb defusing mission, for example, where one of us was in a juggernaut suit and one of us would be doing Overwatch from a rooftop, and such intense moments that stick in my memory. A lot of this has to do with the experience of playing together with someone in my house, on my couch, none of this online nonsense. Absolutely seminal moments in gaming because of the memories that were created at the time. And the last game that I want to mention, and Radical Reggie told me that he would shoot me dead if I didn't mention this game. He didn't say he would shoot me dead, but Road 96. Now this is the most recent game on this list, and the reason why I mention it here, and this game, it's a visual novel for the most part, but it's a very interactive visual novel, and it gives you this story of, kind of puts you in this 90s vibe. It's an alternative history sort of thing where you're in the late 90s and you're a teenager trying to escape a socialist government. Seems like the United States basically, but they call it something different. And the mission is to get all of these different characters across the border to safety, away from this bad government and that sort of thing. And the graphics are beautiful, the music is beautiful. I absolutely love this game to pieces, and it's something that you can just play and play and play because there are so many different endings, so many different branching paths, and God, I love this game. I really, really love this game. And it absolutely does, regardless of whether I was told to put this on the list or not, absolutely does belong on this list as games that emotionally impacted me, because the story, the characters, they're so vibrant, they're so alive, and they just make you want to be a part of that world and help them get across the border. I absolutely can't say enough about this game. If you haven't played it or even heard of it, go look it up. It's fairly cheap on the Switch. You can pick it up physically for $30 or $40 Canadian, probably less in the United States. So anyways, guys, that is my list of my personal greatest games of all time. What do you think of this list? Is this something that you've ever considered doing? I'd like to challenge a couple of other people to do this as well. But I know this is a tough thing for people to do. Sometimes you don't want to put your heart on your sleeve and risk getting ridiculed or whatever, but I am very confident in my list of favorites. I would love to see some of you tell me in the comments what some of your favorite games of all time are, and I would love to see Sean from the Electronic Emotions program carry this on in some form or fashion. Feel free to modify it a little bit if you want and make it your own. And Pori Nog, I would absolutely love to see you do this style of video. So guys, let me know. We can talk about it on the podcast, and it would be great to see your version of the greatest games of all time. Anyways, guys, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for subscribing. We'll see you in the next video. Stay classy.